Hi. So we're going to be talking about rectangles and squares again. So one of the reasons why I think this math program really dwells on rectangles and squares a lot is because if you were doing real life math problems, like you're trying to figure out how to carpet your house or put wood flooring on your house or wallpaper on your walls, or you're trying to figure out how to make a garden plot or a pen for your dog or a pen for your rabbit. Most of the things that we build and that we use in making things, we use a lot of rectangles and squares. And so I think that's why they're really trying to firm up your knowledge with using rectangles and squares. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my math paper. And I'm going to fold it into, I believe we need, let's see, we're going to 213. So we probably need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's do 8 squares. So let's just fold it into 4. I know that sounds crazy. We're just going to fold it into 4 squares, and that will give us 8 front and back. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and screen share my paper so you can see my beautiful 4 folds. And I'm also going to expand this so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. So this is lesson number 13.2. I forgot to put my name. My name is Karen, and I'm doing pages 211 to 213. Okay. Wow, that autofocus was auto unfocus. There we go. Okay. So we're going to look today at both area and perimeter. And so it's going to be really important for us to be able to tell those two things apart. Okay. So we're going to use formulas to do that. And the formulas that I like to use are when I'm finding perimeter, I like to do side plus side plus side plus side, however many sides you have equals perimeter. And when I'm finding the area, I like to do length times width. So I'm going to write my little formulas over here. Perimeter equals side plus side plus side plus side. Since we're dealing with rectangles and squares, we know we're going to have 4 sides. And then I also know that area equals length times width. All right. So sometimes in the math book they will have you doing they'll have you adding length plus width plus width. That works too. But I like to go ahead and multiply it because it's a little bit faster for me. So let's look at this rectangle that we have right here. So we have the width. Width is usually the narrower side. And the length is the longer side. So length is longer, width is narrower. And so if we're finding the perimeter, we're going to add the length plus width plus length plus width, and that equals the total length of all 4 sides. So I like to use side plus side plus side plus side equals perimeter. She's saying you can use a model to show that the perimeter of the rectangle is the sum of its 2 lengths and its 2 widths. So that's what this is. We're actually visualizing it. Here's the 2 lengths. Here's the 2 widths, 2 widths, 2 lengths. And this is actually a visual representation of that. Okay. This says find one side of a rectangle given its perimeter and the other side. So we're going to be figuring out, we know what this length is, but we don't know what the width is, right? And we know that the perimeter is 18 feet. So if we're trying to figure that out, we know since it's a rectangle, if this side is 6, this side is 6, right? And 6 plus 6 is 12, right? And we know that the way I would figure it out is I would say 6 plus 6 is 12, and then I would take 18 and I would subtract 12 from it, and then that would tell me what these two sides are. I'd cut it in half and find these two sides. The book is telling you that what you're going to do, you know that the perimeter of rectangle A is 18 feet. So if I take 18 and I divide it by 2, that's going to give me 9. And if I know that this is 6, 6 plus 3 is 9. So this is going to be 3, and this is going to be 3. So you're going to have 6 and 3 and 6 and 3, because 9 plus 9 is 18, right? So that's showing you how to break the problem down. So let's look at the next problem on the next page, problem 1. And you know what? I'm going to write all the green boxes. So we go through and we do all the steps. And then number 2 doesn't have green boxes. So we're going to try to figure number 2 out on our own. All right. So let's look at number 1. Number 1 has another rectangle, right? And I'm going to draw it right here. It really helps when I'm solving problems like these. I like to use a picture because I'm a visual thinker. And actually, I've found that in general, lots of kids, when they're doing math, visual thinking really helps. So I know that this is called rectangle B. This is 8 yards long. This is question mark yards long. And this is called rectangle B. So the perimeter of rectangle B is 28 yards. So the formula we're going to use is length plus width equals perimeter divided by 2. And that equals green box. I'm just drawing in the green boxes. And that equals green box yards. And then we have 8 plus width equals green box yards. And width equals green box minus green box. And that equals green box yards. And then there's a sentence that says the width of rectangle B is green box yards. Okay, so let's think this through for a second. This is our formula, length plus width equals the perimeter divided by 2. And we know that the perimeter is 28 yards, right? That's what they told us. So the perimeter is 28 yards. So I know that length plus width equals perimeter divided by 2. So if my perimeter is 28 and I divide it by 2, 28 divided by 2 is 14 yards, right? Now, I have to figure out 14. 8 plus the width has to equal 14 yards, right? And the width is going to equal 14 minus 8. And 14 minus 8 is 6. So the width of rectangle B is 6 yards. Now let's plug that in and check to see if we got it right. So if we know that this is 6, and this is 8, and this is 6, we should be able to add all of them together and get 28, right? In theory, 8 plus 8 is 16, and 6 plus 6 is 12. And when we add those together, we get 28. So we did it correctly. So that was pretty easy. Now we have one without any of the green boxes. So let's see if we can figure out how to solve it. I'm going to go ahead and draw it in. Ah, my rectangle is sticking. So this is number 2. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in my rectangle because I like to see visually what I'm doing. And I have, this is 5 yards. And this we don't know. We don't know the question mark. Okay, I'm going to kind of separate these out because I don't want you to get confused here. So the perimeter of a rectangular pool is 32 yards. Its width is 5 yards. Find the length. Let's just copy this same thing. And so we know that length plus width equals perimeter divided by 2. Okay, and that's going to equal divided by 2, right? Because that's what we're saying. So this is going to be the perimeter. And then we're going to figure out what that is. And then we're going to say 5 plus the width. Oh, plus the length, sorry. Length equals this yards. And then we're going to say length. I'm just copying the green boxes from the previous problem because that's just going to be the easiest thing to do. All right, so the perimeter they told us was 32 yards. So we know that length plus width equals a perimeter divided by 2. So if we know that the perimeter is 32 yards and we divide that by 2, that's going to give us 16. So we know that length plus width is 16. So 5 plus the length equals 16. And that means that the length equals 16 minus what we know, which is 5. And that's going to give us 11 yards. So if we said this was 11, this was 5, this was 11, let's add them up and see if they equal 32. So 11 plus 11 is 22, and 5 plus 5 is 10. So that does indeed equal 32. Awesome. Woo! I like that. Okay. Now we're going to look at number 3. So number 3, I'm going to draw a picture of a square because they are talking about a square. And I'm also going to look over, I'm going to show you the very serious boy in the picture is saying something really important. So we're going to look at what the serious boy is saying. All right, here he is. He's saying that you can find one side of a square given its perimeter. The perimeter of a square is 64 meters. find the length of a side of the square. So he's saying, hey, I know what all the lengths are together. There's 64. You can take all the sides of a square because they're equal, and you can just divide by 4. So if I have 64 divided by 4, that tells me that the length of the side is going to be 16 meters. Okay, so our next problem is a square, even though this doesn't look very square-like. So number 3 says Linda bent a wire 132 centimeters long into a square. What is the length of the side of the square? So we know that she started out with 132 centimeters, right? That was how long her wire was. And she bent it into a square. So we know that the length of a side equals green box divided by 4. And that equals green box centimeters. So if I take 132, divide it into 4 equal parts, that's going to give me the equal measurement. Because it's a square, they're all going to be the same. So I'm going to take 132 and I'm going to divide it by 4. 4 will go into 13 3 times, and that's 12. And that's going to give me 33. So that means that each side is 33, 33, 33. And if I add 33 plus 33 plus 33 plus 33, I can check it. 3 times 4 is 12. And I get 132, right? So one length is 33 centimeters. This is a little bit easier because it's a square and you know that all 4 sides are of equal length. This is a little bit trickier because it's not a square. You have 2 sides that are the same and 2 sides that are different. All right, let's look at number 4. Number 4, they're giving it to us without any green boxes. Oh, no green boxes. What do I do? Well, I just copy the one above it, right? So they show you the problem solving model and then you're just going to copy it. So we have a gymnasium. When I was a little kid, my dad would always yell, "This house is not a gymnasium." Whenever we'd get kind of crazy and rambunctious and out of control, there were 4 of us, my dad would yell, "This house is not a gymnasium." I didn't know what a gymnasium was. I thought it was a flower. I confused gymnasium with geranium. So I was like, of course our house isn't a flower. What's wrong with you, Dad? I never understood. All right, so number 4, we're going to say, we're just copying the formula, length of a side equals green box divided by 4, right? And that's going to equal green box. And we're dealing with yards right now, so I'm copying yards down instead of copying down centimeters. So if I know that this whole thing, if the perimeter is 36, then I know that the length of a side is going to equal 36 divided by 4. And that means that each of the sides is going to be 9. And I also know that 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9 is 36. So my answer is the length of a side, it's going to be 9 yards. All right. Now, here we go. We have some let's practice problems. And normally you'd work on those with a partner, but I'm your partner. Ha, ha, ha. I'm your pandemic partner. So I'm looking at number 1, and it's a rectangular garden. So I'm going to make a rectangular picture. Pandemic partner. All right, so I'm making a rectangle. And this rectangle in the picture in the book says that this is 35 feet. And then this we don't know, right? So the perimeter of a rectangular garden is 128 feet. The length of its side is 35 feet. Find the width of the garden. So I'm going back to this page where they showed us all the green boxes, and they said length plus width equals perimeter divided by 2. So if I have length plus width equals perimeter divided by 2. So I have 128 divided by 2, and that equals, let's see, 100 divided by 2 is 50, and 28 is 14. So 50 plus 14 is 64 yards. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to take 35 plus the width equals I'm just drawing in the same green boxes, and unfortunately I wrote yard there. It should be feet. Feet, sorry. All right, so if I know that the length and the width are going to be the whole perimeter cut in half, then I know that it's 64. And so if I know 35 plus the width, that means I'm going to take 64 minus 35, right? And that's going to tell me, I'm going to go ahead and do that right here. So I got 29 feet. So let's see if that's correct. If this is 29, and this is 29, and this is 35, if we took 29 plus 29 plus 35 plus 35, we add those together, we get 10 plus 18 is 28, and 2, 4, 6 plus 6 is 12. So we get 128. So we know that that totals up correctly. So I love doing problems like this because you can always check it just by adding the sides together, and that will tell you if you did it correctly. Okay, let's look at number 2. Young glued a 72 centimeter piece of decorative string around the outer edge of a square top box. What is the length of one side of the square top? Oh, that's easy. The key word there is square, right? So we have a picture that kind of looks like this. It's got a, sorry, I need this to draw better. We have this. The box is topped with a square. So we have that. And we have this. And we have this. And we have this. And this should have gone over there. And this goes here. And this goes here. And so he's putting string along here, decorative string, right? So if we know that he had a 72 centimeter piece of string, we know that length of a side equals the perimeter divided by 4. And so that's going to equal, let's see, he's using centimeters. So I'm going to, if we know the perimeter is 72, then 72 divided by 4, 4 will go into 7 one time. That's 40. We subtract and we get 32. And 4 times 8 is 32. So we know that 18 is the length of each side. And we can double check it by saying 18 times 4 right? Or we could say 18 plus 18 plus 18 plus 18 if you prefer to use repeated addition. All right, here comes our last problem. And that's good because I have to go to a meeting in a couple of minutes. So I'm glad we're on to my last problem to go to a 2-hour meeting. All right. Colin walked, there's no picture. So they're being kind of mean and they're saying, hey, you got to draw your own picture. Colin walked once around a rectangular field. So I know that I'm drawing a rectangle. I don't have to draw Colin. I used to work with a really mean guy named Colin. I don't want to draw a Colin. It'll turn out mean. All right, so Colin walked once around a rectangular field for a total distance of 480 meters. So we're going to use our this same thing that we used before. We said length of side, or length plus width, equals perimeter divided by 2. Just copying that down, and that's going to equal the perimeter divided by 2. Colin walked once around a rectangular field for a total distance of 480. So we know it's 480 divided by 2, and that's going to equal 400 in half is 200, 80 in half is 40. So that's going to be 240. And this is meters. The length of the field is 160 meters. So this is 160. This is 160. This we don't know, right? We know that half of this is 240. So we're going to take, the length of the field is 160. So we're going to take 240 minus the 160, because we know the length, and that's going to tell us the missing number, right? So we're going to go like this, 240 minus 160. We got some regrouping, watch out. And we get, oh, sorry, we don't have to do that. I'm going to do this again. Sorry. Heavens to Betsy Ross. So we don't have to regroup yet. 0 minus 0 is 0. Now we're regrouping. And 14 minus 6 is going to be 8. So we end up with 80. So we know that one side, the width is going to be 80 meters. And let's double check it. If we put 80 here and 80 here, let's see if when we add it together, it totals up. It should total to be 480. So 160 plus 160 plus 80 plus 80. 8 plus 8 is 16. 16 plus 12 is 28. And I get 480. Perfect. All right. So I hope this helped you to figure out how to use a formula to solve an algebra problem, right? We know about perimeter, and now they're taking it a little bit further. They're taking it one step further and using algebra. We know how to find the perimeter. Now let's take away some information and see if you can find missing numbers. And using a formula helps you to be able to do that. All right, so thank you for joining me. And I'm going to stop screen sharing so I can say goodbye to you. All right, so thanks for joining me, and I will see you guys later.